The streets will never make you grow. It's not a seed, it's a gutter. There's no happy endings in this life. So this is my message to you. The streets will never love you back.
Pow! What's up, guys? Well, tonight we have a great show. I got two special guests tonight. We got NYPD in the house, okay? I got Bill Cannon. He is an ex-boss of the North Manhattan Homicide Division for about 10 years. But these guys are great guys, and they have their own podcast. I have Phil Grimaldi, who was a second grade detective. They're going to come along, give us a couple stories, tell us a little about them. They have a podcast called Police Off the Cuff. So we're going to have a good show tonight. I'm going to give a shout out to Live and Let Live, one of my moderators. Boston J, I see you. Dawn Marie, how are you? Rob D, Anthony Motos, Kevin Barracudos, I Paint Houses, Rob D, Boston Red, and to everyone else in the chat, thanks for coming on. Now, I went on these guys' podcast, and I had a real nice time with them. They're going to be on mine tonight, and we're going to have a nice time. Police Off the Cuff. These are two really good guys, and I'm waiting for Phil to get in there. Bill, I see you in there. You want to come on now? Okay. Well, so I want to say, everything that's going on with YouTube is insane. A lot of people need medicine, and a lot of mental patients. I'll tell you the truth, honestly. But these two guys tonight are NYPD guys, and they make me a little nervous. Being around cops, I get a little nervous sometimes. They might break me tonight. But I'm gonna be so happy to have them on. I am. We were supposed to do this a long time ago. And, I'm looking forward to this. Gunsmoke the Don, I see you. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Sebastian Chiara, how are you? So I think I'm just waiting for Phil to come in the chat, in the studio. Once he's in the studio, I'll let them in. And I have a couple questions for them. I'll tell you the truth. I'm going off the cuff with this, I didn't write down a whole bunch of questions. I figure I just hit them with a couple, and then I'll go from there, But, doing this, in time, I get a little better and better. So I know it's going to be a good one tonight. So, Bill, you want to come in? You want to come in? All right, listen. So, Dawn Marie, I see you. Now, what do you ask an ex-detective and an ex-homicide guy? What kind of questions do you ask them? I really don't know. How was your childhood? What made you become a cop? I'm sure they could have went the wrong direction at one time. They probably had someone giving them direction to become a cop. Because when you're a kid, who wants to become a cop? Is that your goal, to become a cop? No, right? But I guess you become a cop, and then from a cop, you become a detective, and then you move up the ladder, right? So, that's a good thing. I tell you the truth, I wish I would have followed that direction, because I have a cousin, Teddy, that's actually a first grade detective on my father's side. I really didn't get to know them too much. I know them. I correspond with them every so often. But I think if I knew them a little better, I might have went that route instead of the route that I went. So, Gaetano Bracco, how are you? Benny Bronx. I'm waiting for Phil Grimaldi to come in the studio. He should be here soon. Now, how's everyone out there? I'm just looking in the chat over here. It's gonna be a good one. I'm a little nervous, I'll tell you the truth, with these guys. These guys have a great podcast, Police Off the Cuff. They do a hell of a job. You know, I heard that they're changing their intro soon. You know, their intro is a little like Welcome Back, Carter. You know, but I heard they're gonna make a new one, and they're gonna upgrade with a little more seriousness to it, put a little more bang into it. But they're good guys. I'm looking forward to this. Jimmy Babes, how are you, buddy? Good, how are you? Boston J, Jimmy Love Loyalty, God Family Country. So tonight we got NYPD in the house, you know, so this is pretty cool. You know, who would think that, you know, the life I lived, the career I went down, you know, that I would be sitting down in a podcast, doing an interview. I don't look at it as an interview, but just chopping up with ex-homicide guy and an ex-detective, right? And Tommy Days is a very dear friend of mine. So, you know, who would think? But the thing in life is, you know what? It's not where you start. It's where you finish. And, you know, thank God I'm at where I am today and going the right direction and good people around me. Satin, much respect to the police all over this great nation. Absolutely. And these two guys, not only are they, you know, ex-cops, but they are also first responders at 9/11. So, you know, to me, they're also heroes. You know, they didn't run away from the building. They ran into the building. They ran towards the building to help people. So these guys are heroes too, you know. And you don't make men like this anymore. You know, the world is changing. Let's see who else I got over here. You changed for the best, buddy. Thank you. Live and let live. God bless the NYPD and all over our country. Yes. Amen. Anyone who wants to defund the police is a moron. Isn't that the truth? I'm not going to get too much into politics today unless, you know, they want to, but not too much. You got to whack MRE. He's out of control. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with him. Hey, Jimmy, it's Brian. What's up, Brian? How's everything? Respect, Jimmy. Love your show. Watching always from Flatbush, Brooklyn. Shout out to Flatbush. Jimmy, you aren't who you were in 1988. I love you. I love you too. Let's see, Ryan Brown. Jimmy, looking forward to tonight. Bill and Phil are great guys with a great podcast. Awesome to have three of my favorite people tonight. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that. Jimmy, can I get a shout out? Alphonse Brooklyn. Alphonse Brooklyn, what's up? Brooklyn in the house, baby. So, Phil, you ready? You want to come on? But these guys are good guys. We're going to have a good show with them. So far, we have 118 people in the chat. Benny Bronx. Let's see. Donnie Ragu. Jimmy, what you do for the kids is tremendous. Much respect. You know what? Listen, I try to help anybody I can. You know, listen, I've been down and out of my life. I've been in dark places, and I thank God every day where I am. You know, I have good people around me, and every day I want to make my crooked path straight. Okay, so we got Phil Grimaldi in the studio. So we're going to get this started, okay? I've been waiting for Phil. So here they are. It's a stream. It's a stream. There they go. Phil, how are you? Phil, how are you?
Good to see you.
How you doing there, buddy?
I'll tell you, listen, you guys make me nervous.
How come? What are we doing making you nervous, Jim?
But listen, I'm very happy to have you guys. You know, you guys really are an inspiration to me. I would never ever think that I would be interviewing, you know, two NYPD guys. And you know, thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity to sit down with you guys and chop it up. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You know, Jimmy, I wanted to say that I'm pretty amazed at how well you're doing in this podcast stuff. It's tough to get people to listen to you. It's tough to be original, and it's tough to keep getting people subscribing. I mean, we were stuck at like 23,000 for about 3 months. We're just starting to move. We're almost at 25 now, but we grew real fast and then we stopped. So, and it gets discouraging. You know how it is, right?
No, absolutely. And the thing is, you're always looking at the numbers, right? You see if they're going up. Sometimes you see, wow, you know what? 5 of them walked away, then 10 of them added. But you know,
Jimmy, I got to tell you a quick story because it's funny. I look at the Patreon, you know, but that's the people that pay to see us, and the numbers were dropping. One day I look and I go, my fucking son dropped out, that prick. He was paying $7 a month. I called him up. I go, you fuck. I go, I paid for your college education. You can't pay $7 a month to watch the podcast. Oh, sorry, Dad. You know, it's like I'm trying to kill him.
This poor kid's never gonna live that down. You don't know.
And it was one of those weeks where we lost 5 or 10 people. I was like, you little prick.
Yeah. You know what Billy forgot to tell you though is that he was only at like 4,000 or 5,000 till he met me. That's the real.
Yeah. Phil did.
I made a veal parmesan.
The whole Brooklyn crew. Yeah.
well, so far we have 149 in the chat. Okay. Now, you guys, when did you start your podcast anyway?
We actually started it like 3 years ago, but we were doing it all wrong. We weren't doing it on YouTube. We didn't start doing it on YouTube or concentrating on YouTube till like a year ago, maybe 14 months ago. So we were doing the podcast on the listening sites and not doing like a video one. And the money is on YouTube, even though YouTube is the hardest venue to be on, because as you know, you got to get 1,000 subscribers to get monetized, and then you need 4,000 hours. And then the more subscribers you get, the more ads and the more money you can make.
Yes. Now, right now, I'm stuck on 23, but I'm moving along. And like you said, you know what? It's not easy. It's very hard, you know, because you got to interact. What I do is every Sunday I interact with the audience. You know, I give them, you know, they have the opportunity to come on here and they could tell a story of something that's going on in their life. And I like that, you know, because listen, as you know, every one of us are battling something, whether it's a depression, mental illness, or fighting a battle of someone we lost. It's always something.
100%. You know, Phil, he lost the big oar he uses to stir the pot of sauce on Sunday afternoons.
He's always breaking my chops about making the sauce, about stirring the sauce. So this past Sunday, my wife made a big sauce with brajol and spare ribs and the meatballs, the whole 9 yards. He says, what happened? You weren't stirring? I said, I lost the oar. So
I'll tell you, you two guys really gel well together, you know, and, you know, Bill, you're an Irishman, right?
Yes.
And Phil's Italian. Now, Phil, you're from Brooklyn. Bill, you're from originally?
I grew up on Long Island. I mean, I was born in Queens, but I grew up on Long Island, and now I'm from Westchester.
Now, what made you guys come together and do this podcast?
Oh,
we met on a TV show. We were on a TV show called The Perfect Murder. And I had done a bunch of episodes where I played like a detective. And Phil showed up one day and he goes, I'm playing one of the detectives. And he was really nervous. I go, don't worry about it. I go, just do what you do at work. That's all.
Let me pick up on that story a little bit. So a good friend of ours, Rick Torelli, who's also a retired detective, he was the executive producer of the show called Perfect Murder. So he told me, if you got any stories, you could give me stories. We'll put them on the show. I said, all right, Ricky. So I hadn't seen him for a while, never heard from him. So I ran into him at a function. I says, Ricky, you still want stories? He's like, yeah. He gives me his card. He says, call me. And then he goes, you want to play a detective on the show? I thought he was kidding. So I says, yeah, sure, absolutely, So I called him. I went and I did a quick, what do you call it?
An audition. I did an audition.
I did an audition. I read a couple of lines. The girl goes, oh, yeah, we're going to use you. We'll call you at the end of the week. I never heard from them. So I called him the following week. It was right near Christmas. I was trying to get plans made for Christmas, I says, Ricky, what are we doing? It was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. He goes, what do you mean? I says, they told me they're going to use me. We doing the show or what? He's like, we're filming Friday. You're in it. What are you talking? They didn't call you? I said, nah, nobody called me. So now he calls me back. He's like, the girl's going to call you. P.S. The girl says, all right, we're going to send you a couple of lines to read. Be over here on Friday afternoon, Friday morning, right? So it was out in Queens. So I get there early, right? I get there and I'm figuring I'm going to see the trucks and everything. Nobody's there. I said, man, I got the wrong friggin' address. I start calling Ricky Torelli. He's like, no, you're in the right spot. Just stay there. We're coming from Manhattan, So all of a sudden the car pulls up. It's Bill Cannon, I look at him. I said, this guy's got to be a cop, So I knock on the window. How you doing? Yeah, you with the show? Yeah. So I says, listen, I never did this before. He says, Phil, don't worry about it. He goes, just follow my lead. He goes, we're going to interview people like we did on the job. It's just like being on the job. And next thing you know, the lights were set up. They put the piece of tape on the floor and action, and we were rolling and everything just went good. I wound up doing like 3 episodes. I think Billy did about 6 of them. And then they canceled the show on us. But so we stayed in touch after that. And we tried out for a couple other things. And then he started the podcast. I came on as a guest and he knew he couldn't go forward without me. So here I am as a co-host.
No, I had him on as a guest. So it was like an audition, and he was a guest a bunch of times. And I go, he's pretty good. So then I brought him on as a co-host.
I'll tell you, you guys are like naturals with the podcast. You really gel very well together. You're very well spoken. Phil, Phil loves to talk. He's a talker, Phil.
Sometimes I got to shut him the fuck up. He talks too much.
But,
he cuts my mic sometimes. I don't know what's going on.
But Phil is originally from Avenue, right, Phil?
Yes, absolutely.
Avenue. You know a couple of my family members?
Yes.
They told me. But so where do we start with you guys? So what made you, as a young kid, how were you as a young kid growing up, say in Brooklyn, Phil? What made you want to become a cop? Because in Brooklyn, in our neighborhood, usually you become a criminal.
Absolutely. I was getting pulled in 2 different directions, but I was, my family, my grandparents met in Coney Island. They're from Coney Island. Second generation, they moved a little bit towards Avenue X, and I grew up right on Neck Road and Van Sickle Street around near Wolf Place. So anyways, there was influences from the street 100%, but my parents put us in Catholic school, so that was a little bit of a help. I had a very strong family around me. My mother and father got divorced when I was like 11, but my father was worked for the state. He was a special agent for the Division of Unemployment. And then he wound up working in the office and stuff. But I had an uncle named Frank Tomasino, who was a NYPD cop. And he was the guy that everybody went to in the family when there was problems, situations. And then my other uncle owned a junkyard in Coney Island. So I got an education from them. And all my mother's brothers, they were all very close, very tight. And, now we were going into the 3rd generation. And, my uncle worked for the transit authority. My other uncle, like I said, was a cop. My other uncle was an electrician. So they were like pushing us in the direction of civil service, get a real job, and trust me, I was around a lot of shit on Avenue, drugs, gangsters. I knew them all. I worked in a Sala Maria when I was a kid, and I could have went to the left, but there was a guy by the name, you'll know him, Jimmy, Nicky Black Granacio. Now, when I was a kid growing up, I was working in the Sala Maria, and he would come in there from time to time, and I would talk with him, and he was like in the truckers union, all of that. His nephew actually is a detective by the name of Louis Scarcella, who I also met back then. But anyways, when I was talking about becoming a cop, he chimed in one day and he says to me, listen, kid, he goes, if you're going to be a cop, be a good cop. if you're going to be a crook, be a good crook. And I never forgot that, and the things that I learned from the street growing up about loyalty and stuff like that, it always stayed with me, So I was like into the cop thing when I saw the movie French Connection. My uncle was a cop, he used to let us play with his gun. He would unload it, let us pull the trigger, dry fire, all that. And then the stories that came out of him, forget about it, So that was my intrigue. But then as I got older, like I said, 17, 18, there wasn't a lot of work, car service, this, that. And there was a big influx of drugs. I'm talking about 78, 79, drugs were everywhere. It would have been very easy to go that route. But I started taking the civil service test. I just about made it out of high school. I wound up dropping out and I took the GED just like our friend Tommy Dades. So, again, it could have went one way. I have an older brother, Big Nick. He's 3 years older than me. He used to kick the shit out of me all the time if I got caught cutting out of school or anything like that. So all of these different influences, my cousin Joe and my cousin Peter from the junkyard, they kept me on the straight and narrow. And that's how I wound up getting into the police force.
Nice. And Phil, you know what? I mean, Phil's Italian, you're Irish. So when I see an Irishman, I say, you know what? Okay, he's a cop. So, so right away, how about you? Did you have any family members that were cops?
Yeah, my father was a cop, and actually my younger brother was a cop, and I sort of resisted the temptation to become a cop. I didn't come on the job till I was 28, which was pretty late because you used to be able to come on the job when you were 20. And I tried some other things. I had a degree in broadcast journalism, and that didn't work out. And I was tending bar, and when I took the test and it was time, I got called. And to tell you the truth, when I came in the police department, I loved the job right away. It was like that was what I was meant to do. And I wound up in plain clothes in a year and a half. I was still on probation. They put me into anti-crime, and I never looked back. And then I made boss with less than 5 years on the job, and I was a boss for 22 of my 27 years on the NYPD. I worked my way into the robbery unit and then detective bureau. And then my last 10 years, I was in Manhattan North Homicide Squad, which was probably the best job on the police department. I was offered, I was there for 3 months, and I got a call from a chief that said, I see you put an application in for Joint Terrorist Task Force. He goes, if you want to come in, he goes, this is the interview. You're in. He goes, I'm telling you, you're in. And I said, Chief, I just get into homicide. If I leave, my name will be mud. And I go, I can't do it. I go, thank you. But so I turned down JTTF, which is like a huge, huge career move on the police department. Because when you work with the feds, and when you leave, you can get a job like anywhere, So
I turned down JTTF too, but it was offered to me by, you'll know him, Jimmy won't know him, by Crazy Al King. He offered it to me. I was already second grade, and he says, come to JTTF and you'll get first grade. I'll give you a car. You could go to Guantanamo Bay and break balls with the guys.
You got a car, you got a credit card. You
got the phone. Now this was like it was after 9/11. It was 2001. Yeah. And I said, listen, I left Coney Island. I was in the Coney Island squad for a lot of years. I left because of this guy, and he had like an enlightening, and he was like, he wanted to make up for, some bad blood that we had in the past. I was like, listen, boss, I don't know how long I'm going to stay. I got over 20 years. I'm in Intel. At the time I was running around in Intel. I was doing great, and I had a great
The sauce is overheating on the pot at my house.
Yeah. I got to keep an eye on the sauce. So. But I didn't trust the guy. I would have went to JTTF, but I didn't trust him. So I let it go. Crazy Out King. But yeah. So
Phil, do you make sauce every Sunday?
No, my wife does. My wife, believe it or not, my wife is Spanish, but she grew up in Bensonhurst. Her mother is a tremendous cook. My mother-in-law could cook anything. And over the years, she loaned my wife a lot of the recipes. My mother-in-law lived with us for a lot of years. So she picked up a lot from her mother. And then, my family's little influences, I guess, too. But she's a wicked cook, my wife. And I got to watch The Wasteland or else, I'll blow up.
Jimmy, I love going out to dinner with Italian guys. Like, they're always like, they take control of the table. They're like this with the waiter. Like, hey, come over here.
Oh, we start ordering the appetizers.
It's like a traffic cop at the table, Like, I love just sitting back and watching it,
I tell you what, that's what my girl says. We go out to dinner, we go to certain restaurants, and as soon as they go in, right away they know me, because I like to go to restaurants where they know me.
Yeah, me too.
And hey, Jimmy, how you doing? I say, hey, how's everything? And they just put us to the table, and they know, what? I go to restaurants, I like to eat a steak with like broccoli rabe. That's like my favorite dish, My girl, she's like a salmon. You know, she likes salmon.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you. So you know what? You were the boss of the North Homicide Division. Now, the boss? What is the boss doing? And what do you do?
Well, Jimmy, there was a commanding officer who's a lieutenant, and there was 3 sergeants that each had 6 detectives under them. And there was an A team, B team, and a D team. And we would work 4 on and 2 off. We'd work 2 4-to-1s and 2 day tours. And so it went around the whole clock. Whenever there was a shooting or a murder or a major case, we would respond. And that was in the entire Manhattan North. So there were 13 precincts. But really, like 4 or 5 precincts was where we got all our work. That's where, the 3-2, the 3-4, the 2-5, the 2-3, 2-8. That's where all the murders were, if you got a murder like in the 19th, it was a rarity, but it was a big news thing, Anywhere from 59th Street to 96 on the east side, that's the most expensive real estate on this earth. So if someone gets killed there, all of a sudden everyone gives a shit, Where if someone gets shot on 135th Street and Broadway, no one cares,
Yeah, of course. And so you guys, the question I had next was, you guys ever run into any mobsters?
Oh yeah.
I see. That's the funny thing about my career. We didn't run into mobsters in Manhattan North. There was organized crime, but it was Black organized crime or Hispanic organized crime. There were home invasion teams, things like that. There was really no Italian organized crime in Manhattan North. Maybe wise guys lived in Manhattan, some of them, but they didn't ply their trade that we could see anyway. They weren't doing murders in Manhattan,
How about you, Phil?
Well, I was in the 6-0 squad in Coney Island during the Colombo mob war. So, when all of that craziness was going on, the guy that I brought up earlier, Nicky Granaccio, he gets whacked on Avenue U. He gets shot and killed by Larry Mazur and Greg Scarpa during they pulled up on him and they blasted him. So I responded over there. I saw Nicky Black. I knew him from growing up. It was a really gory homicide. He had been hitting like the back of the head with a shotgun blast, and it really did some major damage. And he was a big guy. He was a big fuck. He was like a bear, So anyways, during that time, there was a lot of shit going on. There was another shooting, probably very close to that shooting, where a kid shows up in Coney Island Hospital. He's shot like in the hip or something. Where did it happen? He's not being cooperative. He's a wise guy's son. The guy's name was Bobo Malpizzo. He had a sports club on McDonald Avenue up near Kings Highway. And immediately after word got out about that, when we had just gotten to the hospital, the whole homicide squad came. We were all there trying to interview the kid. The father saying, listen, he was a gentleman about it. He's, listen, guys, I can't talk to you. Bop, bop, bop. All of a sudden, word comes over the radio that a bagel store on 3rd Avenue in Bay Ridge, somebody walked in and blasted an 18-year-old kid and killed him. That was all part of the Colombo mob war. So things were spinning out of control. Now, like I said, I grew up on Avenue U. I knew a lot of the guys growing up. I knew the Frankie Lino, Eddie Lino, Bobby Lino, Nicky Black. I knew a lot of them. And, so now I come in one day and they're like, all right, the bosses came together with an idea. The district attorney's office is sending out grand jury subpoenas to every gangster in Brooklyn, and it's all working out of the 6-0 squad, So every detective is going to take 4 subpoenas, and it was like for the next day or the day after that, these guys had to show up in court. So I run over to the stack, and they're having like this big meeting, and I'm looking through. I got to grab 4 names of people I don't know, because I don't want to knock on somebody's door that I know, and they can be like, "Hey, Phil, come on in, have a cup of black coffee," So I grabbed 4 names from guys like downtown Brooklyn, down on President Street. They assigned me with a guy from the DA's office. I says, "Listen, I got the guys we're going to hit already." He's like, "Can I take a look at the names?" Maybe he knew somebody. We both looked at it. We went out, knocked on the door. One was the guy wasn't home, gave it to the wife. The other 2 guys, everybody was fairly respectful. For the most part, when I ran into gangsters, once or twice I had guys that were disrespectful and I had to go right back at them. But for the most part, they knew we were doing a job. The old school guys, they were all right. Listen, all right, fellas, how are you? What's going on? They always try to offer you something to eat or something to drink. Would you like a cup of coffee? Listen, we're not here for that. I actually had to lock up one of the workers in Gargiulio's restaurant in Coney Island one time, and that's a big. They're not mob related, but different people hang out in there and stuff. So that was a little touchy, but it was like a crazy story. It was a young girl had gotten sexually abused by one of the workers, and when I went in there, they were like almost trying to cover for the guy, and I looked the owner in the eye and said, listen, I don't come in here, I'm not a customer, I'm not trying to break your balls, but if this was your daughter, what would you want? Well, if it was my daughter, I says, listen, the people who this happened to, they're not going to break the guy's legs. They want him arrested. Don't break my balls. I won't break yours. Produce the guy. Sure enough, they produced the guy. We locked the guy up. It went to court, and that was it. But they had a lot of respect. And most of the gangsters that I ran into over the years, they were always respectful to me. I got nothing bad to say about any of them.
You know, Jimmy, one of the things you learn about being a cop, like when you're on the street, it's different than being a detective or a sergeant in the squad. When I was an anti-crime, both which is plain clothes, both as a cop and as a boss, I hated the criminals. You know what I mean? I had this thing where I just wanted to fuck, because they were victimizing old ladies, knocking people, robbing, sticking guns at people. And I really had that us versus them thing. But then once I got into the squad, it was a little different because it was more of like an intelligent type of police work where you could take your time and you could do an investigation, identify someone that's doing a robbery or whatever, and go and pick them up. Whereas the street, there was much more tension to be out there for 8 hours, cruising around in an unmarked car, looking, we used to call it going hunting, going hunting for a collar. And it makes you it's a lot different actually,
Well, you know what? You guys are old school guys. As you know, the world has changed. I mean, to be a cop today, I think it's a lot harder compared to how it was back then. Back then, you had a lot of leeway. Back then, I think if you had someone in the squad car, if they made it to the precinct, they were lucky. Today, you know what? You got to be so careful, and you have to do things a certain way. Right away, they got to put their camera on.
Body camera, yeah.
Everything's so different. What do you guys? I know how you guys feel about that, but how times changed.
Jimmy, I just got to make a comment before you go further into about you. It sounds like you're going into talking about how things are today, but just real quick. And you might relate to this too, because you had interactions with the cops as a kid growing up. Now, for me, when I was in uniform, I got met with a different, people were, if the victim was reaching out to you, they were always very responding to you. But a lot of times you wouldn't get the respect. As I went into plain clothes, I was in anti-crime, the respect got a little bit more. And then when I was a detective, I always prided myself on looking good. I would put on a suit. I would always try to dress nice. And it seemed like they would, you go to the scene of something, let's say a homicide, a shooting, whatever, they would push the uniform cop out of the way. They push the anti-crime cop out of the way to come and talk to you, to give you the information a lot of times. And I think that, listen, I worked in Coney Island in the projects. For the most part, I didn't deal with a lot of gangsters and stuff like that. It was a lot of, drug dealers and different people and people that are on the lower end of the totem pole, so to speak, people that are poor. And, I went into them projects and I wasn't afraid of nothing. I felt like when I was working that nothing could stop me. And, when I knocked on the door, the minute I got respect, I gave it right back. I was very nice to people. I treated everybody the same. But the minute that somebody tried to disrespect me, that's when, it just became a whole different atmosphere,
How about you, Bill?
Yeah, it's the truth that, you treat people with respect and you don't, for the most part, you treat someone with respect, you get respect. And, usually you get more respect when you're in plain clothes or if you're wearing a suit, you're a detective, they look at you, they look at you as an old dog and they know, hey, this guy didn't get to where he's at because he's an idiot. You know what I mean? He got to be an old dog because he passed all of those new dog tests,
I'll tell you, what? I got a couple tickets for speeding. As soon as I get pulled over, what I do is I shut the car off. I put my hands on the steering wheel, roll down the windows, and I say, yeah.
The lights on, the interior lights.
And I cooperate with the officer, what did I do? Of course, I know what I did. And I try to talk my way out of getting a ticket. Obviously some people are ignorant and they want to, try to go at the cop and argue with the cop.
You be combative with the cop.
Yeah, be combative, exactly. But look, the world is changing and things are changing, and it's rough out there to be a cop today. I tell you, I'm sure.
Jimmy, what changed everything really is video and phone cameras. Every time you take any action, people are videotaping you. So you have to do everything correctly, and using force. Back in the day, if someone disrespected you, smacked him across his face, and he understood that he deserved it because he wised off. You do that now, they're going to put cuffs on you.
That's what changed. And Graffiti Mouth asked, "Did you guys know Frank Serpigo?"
That's before our time. That's way before our time. He's still alive, that guy.
Yeah, he's still he was seen in Greenwich in Little Italy not long ago by a friend of mine. I don't know. My friend was
he's still stirring up shit.
Yeah, James, the guy that we went to the funeral with, Big James, and he was saying that he met him, he knows him. But going back to the respect and all of that, I think that there was a time when people got smacked in the mouth if they wised off, but I don't think that not many people wised off back in them days. You know what I mean? Listen, when we walked into the room or we walked into a situation, most of the time people, they go back on their heels a little bit and they kind of, you got a drunk or you got a wise guy that you had to do what you had to do. But today, like you said, Jimmy, people are getting pulled over for, running a red light or a stop sign or talking on a cell phone, and they're ready to start fighting with the cop and rolling. And I've seen a lot of these incidents go bad, and I always tell people, if you comply, you don't die. And the Black Lives Matter people, they should really be sending that message out that, listen, if a cop pulls you over for a ticket or whatever, if you don't resist and you comply with his orders, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to get handcuffed. You're going to be sent to a precinct or a jail, and you're going to be out and you'll be able to fight it. But if you start to fight with the guy and things go bad, and the guy could be a new jack or he's nervous or he accidentally shoots you and killed you, who's going to suffer then? Your family's going to suffer, So that's the message I try to send out to the young people. Don't fight with the cops. It's not worth it. You're not going to win. You're going to lose. And God forbid some tragedy could happen. And nobody wants that, Listen, the baddest guy in the world doesn't deserve to get shot unwarrantedly. You know what I mean? By accident, some cop's gun goes off or something like that. So if you comply, you don't die. Just try and remember that.
Yes. And on your podcast, what was the highest number you got so far, like in the chat?
We had 6,000 once.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was when we hit those stories of Wells, the Summer Wells
and Gabby Petito,
Tennessee. We hit 6,000, but I mean, we've never even get anywhere near that anymore. If we get 300-400, we're happy now. But that was like the show we did with Sammy, we have 63,000 views now. But it keeps growing. People keep watching it.
Right now we got 305 in the chat.
That's good.
That's a good number.
But I tell you, you guys have a great podcast. You have all kinds of guests on there, and you guys are doing a great job.
Jimmy, one of the things we try to do is to have like eclectic type of guests, because if you just have one type of guest or if you have just one type of formula, people get bored, Like tonight we're having a retired Manhattan district attorney, Dan Bibb, who got a murder conviction without a body. And the case was as Dr. Birnbaum killed his wife in 1985. He got away with it for 15 years. In 2000, they decided to prosecute him, and they found out that he had strangled her, threw her in the trunk of his car, drove to the airport where he was a pilot, threw her in a plane, flew the plane over the Atlantic between Montauk and Cape May or whatever it was, and threw her out of into the Atlantic Ocean. They never found her body. But this district attorney got a conviction on all.
Billy, how long? It was a long time. It was like 10 years before there was a conviction. Before he was even
it was 15 years before he was charged. He killed her in 1985.
Yeah.
So this guy thought that he was going to get away with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
he
moved
was
to North Dakota, or he moved to another state. He had
he was
another
on with his
girlfriend.
life. Yeah, he moved
Yeah.
on.
He's a plastic surgeon. And actually last year, he's up for parole. And he admitted he did it exactly the way the district attorney said he did.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was some case. Imagine putting together a case like that, though. I mean, think about it. No body, and they found all these other different things. Witnesses at the airport with his private plane. People saw him going out with the with what turned out to be the body. You know, hidden in what was it hidden in a
It was in
duffel
like
bag?
a duffel bag he threw
Yeah,
into the back
yeah.
of his trunk.
It's really an amazing story, and it's very difficult to charge somebody without no body. You know, that's one of the things that's one of the humps you have to get over when you're doing an investigation on a murder. But you know, now you don't even have a body. But our good friend Tommy Dades, he's tried and convicted some people in the past that where the bodies were never recovered. So it's not easy, but it's possible.
Well,
Yeah.
and Jimmy, the reason we're having him on is because we were covering this case of these two kids from Bakersfield, California. And 16 months ago, they were reported missing by their parents. And they were 4 years old and 3 years old. And the story sucked that their parents told. The district attorney just gave a press conference last week, and she said, we have evidence that the kids were dead 3 months before their parents reported them missing. So both parents were locked up for murder. So again, it's going to be a case they're going to try without the bodies.
Bodies still haven't been recovered.
Yeah.
And it's just such a horrific story because the kids are 3 and 4 years old. And then there's other kids in the house, 2 of their own, and then 2 other adopted kids. And the information we're getting is that the parents enlisted the younger kids to beat the hell out of the 2 kids that are now dead. So it's really a horrible story.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the system, something slipped through the system, slipped through the cracks of the system because these kids were foster care and then adopted by the parents. And then it turned bad. So that's the story that we did a couple of days ago. And we're going to have Dan Bibb on tonight at 9 on our show to talk about the no body homicides.
I got to watch that. I'll tell you, you guys have a lot of interesting cases on your channel. You guys are doing really good.
Yeah, you got to just keep your ear to the ground and to come up with some of these cases, or to cover when you cover a case, as you know, or a story that you don't know a lot about. You got to do a lot of research, or you sound like a boob. So you got to find out, because if you say something wrong, people in the chat go, "That's wrong. You didn't get," and you're like, "Oh, take it easy, take it easy."
Yeah. But you guys growing up, did you guys ever commit a crime?
Yeah,
I could tell you a quick story. I was with my friends. I was probably about maybe 15, 16 years old. And I hung out with guys that were 2 or 3 years older than me. And we were by PS 95 Schoolyard. You know where that is, Jimmy, right? Over off Avenue. So we're on the Neck Road side. We're walking by, and we walk by a car that's running. Somebody jumped out of this car and it's running. And I was like, come on, guys, let's go for a ride. And I go to get in the car. And one of my friends grabs me by the collar, my friend Joey Skull. And he pulls me away. He's like, what are you, crazy now? I have to stay away from the car. A second later, here comes anti-crime, pulls up. They must have saw that the car was stolen, and whoever jumped out of it, they were waiting to see who was going to get into it. I was a step away from getting in the car. They jump out. What are you guys doing? Where you from? All right, get the fuck out of here. They chased us, But had I gotten in that car and maybe went for a ride, I might not have had the career that I had,
How about years ago? The crimes are so different than today. The same thing with a drug of choice with people in the street. I mean, back then there was a lot of cocaine, a lot of drug deals going down. Today, like you said, there's a lot of cameras. You know what I mean? How does a police officer do his job today?
Wow, you got to just almost have to observe the crime, because taking action, if you don't have probable cause, boom, like that, there's so many people watching you and cameras watching you, and not just people with cameras, stationary cameras. That's why it's even tough for people to get away with crime. Look at all these recent homicides. The one that poor girl that was killed in that East Harlem Burger King by that savage, that was all put together by cameras. They tracked him going down into the subway, and they used the subway cameras. They saw he got out of location in Brooklyn. That's how that guy was caught. So detective work is so much different too. I mean, everything is trackable. Cell phones are trackable, right? Everyone has Easy Pass. You're a fool if you don't have Easy Pass because you'll be waiting at a toll booth for a day, right? People used to say, I don't want Easy Pass. I don't want anyone knowing where I am. They changed that up when they sit at a toll booth, right? Waiting to go through it. But everything's trackable.
And you see all these devices on these poles now. They're cameras, and if someone shoots a gun, you know where the shot was fired from.
They have something called Shot Tracker. Yeah, they have those up they have those in locations where the most shootings happen. And they can pinpoint where the gun was fired from. It's amazing, Wow,
I'll tell you, technology.
Yep.
Listen, it made it a lot easier today for the detectives. Certain things got easier and other things got harder. Like, we would have had to be knocking on doors, canvases, trying to find witnesses in that Burger King murder had there not been all that video camera. Maybe person would have got caught, maybe not. But I think it makes it a lot easier now. And like Bill said, with the traffic cameras, there's a thing called plate readers. You go through tolls now. There's certain areas where either you have Easy Pass or you don't, and it takes a picture. And if you don't, they mail you the bill. So you could pull that information. Like if you think somebody went over the Verrazano Bridge at a certain time, you could pull that information off the cameras and you'll catch the car. You'll catch a picture of the car. You might see who's in the car. So there's a lot of different things technology-wise that helps law enforcement. The things that got a little bit more difficult are like when we used to do interviews. I'm not saying that I violated anybody's civil rights, but they want you reading the guy the rights from the minute you put handcuffs on him. And there's been times when if a guy doesn't cooperate, he could really be hurting himself, and I've been in situations, homicide investigations where, the guy was maybe an accomplice or he was with somebody, didn't know what was going to happen. They don't want to talk. And then, it makes it more difficult for them down the line. And then there's cases where people cooperate and they actually take themselves out of the criminal liability end of it. So, listen, everybody's got their constitutional rights. Everybody knows about that. So, if you don't want to talk, you don't have to talk. But sometimes it's in your best interest. I know people might not agree with this, but sometimes depending on the situation, it might be in your best interest to tell the story and maybe you could get out from under. But that's something maybe you got to think about and maybe discuss with your attorney too.
I'll tell you, you talk about that case with the young girl that got killed in Burger King. That's such a sad story. You know what I mean? Because that's on camera. And that girl was 19 years old.
Yeah, 19.
19 years old, a beautiful girl. I mean, I got two daughters, and I think about my kids. I worry about them. Today you leave the house, you don't know what to expect out there. I mean, the world is going crazy.
The worst part about that case is that she gave the money. I mean, he just shot at the shooter. He was a friggin' savage. I didn't want to use the language, but a real savage. That's disgusting. It's terrible. And, what's going on with gun crime in the city today, all of these politicians, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. I mean, you got to get out there. They took away, we had a thing that was very widely used to take guns off the street called stop, question, and frisk. Now, you weren't just stopping people arbitrarily. You had to have levels of suspicion, and then you would talk to them, and then if you felt that it was the next level, you could frisk them. And they took that away. They took away the plainclothes anti-crime. Those were the guys that secrete themselves into the neighborhood. You're going into areas where there's high crime. That there's guys, gangs, whatever, carrying guns, and you watch it for different things. Either if there's robbery patterns, maybe you catch a guy when he's about to do a robbery and you stop it. All of those things were taken away. And then the other thing in New York and across the country, they have this bail reform where, you get arrested and they're letting the guy out before the cop finishes the paperwork. A lot of that is what's causing this uptick in crime. And then again, just looking the other way on jumping the turnstile in New York or drinking beer in public or smoking a joint in public. Those are the things that led to, keeping crime down. Believe it or not, people don't realize that those were the quality of life crimes that caused the big crime drops in the 90s.
I'm going to tell you guys, you know what? I work in Manhattan every so often, Manhattan, Jersey City. I'm a Teamster. And sometimes I got to take the train to Manhattan. And you know what? I hate to take the train. I mean, there's only trouble in the train, and sometimes you have staring contests with these people, and you have a lot of mental patients roaming the subways, and a lot of homelessness going on. What do you guys think about that?
I think that they should empty all the trains and the streets of all the homeless people. No one belongs living in the trains. No one belongs riding the trains to the exclusion of a paying customer. And it's ridiculous. These people are walking time bombs. And same thing on the street. Someone last year tried to pitch a tent on the mall of 86th Street and Broadway on the Upper West Side. To the credit of the police and the neighborhood, they were like, no, we're not putting up with this shit. Get that tent. Next thing you know, it'll be San Francisco, and they can't allow that to happen in this city. But I'll tell you something. That's why a lot of people leave in New York, because the electorate is out of their mind. And that's the people that elect these politicians. And the politicians are nuts too. There was just an article today in the New York Times. They're opening all these marijuana dispensaries, and they're going to give a bunch of them to people and families of people who've been previously arrested for marijuana crimes. And I'm just like, what is that about? They say, oh, these people were victimized by being arrested for marijuana. No, it was against the law at the time they were arrested. So now they're going to give them first dibs on getting some of these marijuana dispensary locations.
I'll tell you, it's something, victimized, because today everyone cries victim.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I was watching a video on YouTube about in Manhattan at the Supreme Court building. All over the Supreme Court building, it said no pigs allowed. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, there's no respect for NYPD no more. I mean, the world is going crazy.
I think a lot of that also comes from the politicians taking the tools away from the police to do their job, so that the public feels that they can disrespect the police. Because now, perfect example, someone told me there was this nutcase in Penn Station, and he's going off, and there's like 10 cops around him just doing a dance. No one's doing anything because they're afraid to put their hands on the guy, because the cameras come out and all of a sudden people are like, oh, you didn't need to use that much force, So instead, they're watching the guy. They're not doing anything. And what happens? It shuts down everything. I just mope one day on the train, is going crazy on the train, and it's rush hour, and the whole train's not going anywhere. Two guys from EMS come on the train, same thing. They don't want to put their hands on the guy. All of a sudden, a big 6'5", 6'6" Rasta goes on the train, grabs the guy, and just tosses him right off the train. End the problem.
He probably wanted to get home, the guy.
Yeah.
Enough
he
is
just
enough.
tosses him. I go, that's what the police and the EMS should have done.
They're afraid to put their hands on people because of the cell phone cameras, because of the body cameras. And, if you put your hands on somebody, and I tell people this all the time, there is no force that looks good on camera. So when I go to arrest somebody, when I was on the job, and I'd say, put your hands behind your back, and it could be a 120-pound lady or, a 275-pound football player. When they said no, and you had to use force, if somebody's videotaping it, it just doesn't look good no matter what. So, and that's the thing that people understand. So now cops, because they're getting indicted at the drop of a hat, you go to work as a plumber. If you make a little mistake, maybe there's a flood or something, no big deal. You make a mistake as a cop, you're going to lose your livelihood, and you could wind up in jail. So these cops are being extra careful. And I think society changed a lot too. Now, I'm going to give you a quick story from the early 80s. I was in uniform, and I was working in the 7-0, and you'll know Edward R. Murrow High School, Jimmy. We happen to drive back there, and I see these young white Jewish kids, and they're spray painting with spray paint on the school. So I jump out of the car, I grab the spray paint from the kid, and the kid, you could see a clean-cut kid that came from a good family and looked like they had money. So I said, wow, it's a nice jacket you got on. He goes, oh, yeah, my mother just bought it for me. I says, turn around. What do you mean? I said, turn around. I took the spray paint, and I put an X on the back of it was like a suede leather jacket. I put the X on. I says, now go home and tell your mother and father that that's what you get for spray painting on the school. I took the can, I threw it into the dumpster, and we let the kids go. So now I forget about it. A couple hours later, I go into the precinct for meal, and I see I see the X. The kid is standing at the desk officer, in front of the desk, talking to the desk officer. His mother's got his arm around him, and I hear her saying, "I want to talk to the cop. I want to talk to the cop." So now I slip in to try and go upstairs, and the desk officer says, "Grimaldi, come here a second." I walk over. He says, "This lady wants to talk to you." She goes, "Are you the officer that did this to my son's jacket?" Now I'm thinking, if I say yes, I'm in trouble. I says, "Why?" She goes, "Well, I just want to thank you because he told me he was spray painting on the school, and you did. I'm going to make him wear that jacket every day." The lady was on board. I bet the kid never picked up a can of spray paint again. And listen, that was like stupid to me. Spray painting on a building, a beautiful school. It was so ridiculous. It was the first thing I thought of. Listen, I could have brought the kid in and gave him a record and something. I didn't see it that way. I seen it as let me make the kid understand what he did was wrong. And the mother was right along with it. Now today, I could be charged with a crime if you do that, if you're a uniformed cop today. It's a different world. So,
that's what I'm saying. Say a guy's a cop, he has a family, you know what? He's basically just going to work, put your hours in and come home. You know what? You see something, don't do anything. I mean, because you know what, like you said, right away he's being criticized, for doing his job.
Yeah, that's they call that the Ferguson effect. And that was from that case in Ferguson, Missouri. Remember the hands up, don't shoot that turned out to be all bullshit? The cop, the guy tried to grab the cop's gun. He punched the cop when the cop was inside the car.
Yeah.
And the cop shot and killed him. And Missouri rioted for weeks after that. And the whole rallying cry, and it was done by the NFL, the NBA, was hands up, don't shoot. And that turned out to be a lie. That never happened. The guy that was with his co-conspirator is guy that did the robbery of the little bodega, stealing cigarettes or cigars or whatever. He's the one that said that. And everyone took that as the truth. And that's what inflamed the riots. Hands up, don't shoot. That never, ever happened,
The politicians also helped inflame that situation because the minute that the guy said, "Hands up, don't shoot," instead of the politicians calling for comment saying, "Listen, let the investigation work itself out. Let's find out the facts." They just, "Oh my God, hands up, don't shoot." And things just spiraled out of control. And then the federal government, Eric Holder's FBI, investigated that case, and they found that cop did absolutely nothing wrong. That the guy, I think his name was Michael Brown. Was it Michael Brown?
Brown was the guy he shot. I forget the kid.
That's what I'm talking about. Michael Brown. He punched the cop in the face, broke his cheekbone. They found Michael Brown's DNA on the cop's gun. He was grabbing for the cop's gun. So in a fight for his life, he shot the guy. Unfortunately, the guy was killed. But the guy's actions are what caused it. It got completely blown out of proportion. The cop that it happened to had to leave the state. He had to move. He had to resign from the police force. Now, his life is never going to be the same. And listen, it's a tragedy that guy was killed, but it was his own actions that caused it. It wasn't the cop. Cops don't wake up in the morning and put their gun belt on and their badge and their vest and say, "I'm going to go out and kill somebody, an innocent person." Don't work that way,
And then you had the case here, Eric Garner. With the cop Pantaleo. That was with the untaxed cigarettes.
That was Staten
Island.
Yeah, and they called it the chokehold case, and he died. And that cop was put through hell for like 2.5, 3 years, and then he was fired. And
you know what the funny thing about that case, Billy, is that guy was arrested 32 times for minor infractions. He never was charged with resisting arrest. That day, and it's on video. It's on the video. He said, "I'm not going today." That's it. "I'm not going." He just says, "I'm not going to jail today." And he decided to fight with the cops. Now, Again, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. If he would have complied, he wouldn't have died. He wouldn't have died that day. That's for sure. And, it just turned out to be a horrible tragedy. He died. The cop's life was ruined. The city had to deal with all the protests and stuff. And it's really unnecessary.
But let me ask you a question. Now, this guy, Eric Gardner, he was selling cigarettes, right? With the tax things on it.
He was selling Lucy's, Jim. He was selling Lucy's.
He was selling Lucy's. Now, in all honesty, I look at that not even as a crime.
Yeah, it's bullshit. But something, they were told by someone actually at a very high level from the mayor's office.
Yeah,
they were getting complaints about it. So they were sent out by the Staten Island borough commander. "I want you to enforce this. We're getting a lot of complaints." Yeah. And that's why it was enforced.
Yeah, you know it is, because I look at that compared to what's going on today. I mean, that was nothing compared to what's going on today. I mean, seriously, I mean, the cops today, if my children said they want to be a cop, I'm gonna be honest. I say, you know what, don't be a cop, because I'd be scared of death for them.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I would tell them, you know what, choose something else to become.
Well,
Because
in 8 years of de Blasio, he destroyed the city. In 8 years of him being the mayor, just destroyed the city.
Absolutely. One last thing about Ghana. The business owners, the store owners over there were complaining to the community board. It went through to the mayor's office, and then it went to the borough command, and they said, go over there. Now, normally, if somebody called the cops, a uniform patrol, like if it was me or if it was Bill, we'd go over and say, buddy, get the hell out of here. Just chase the guy. He would, nothing would ever happen, But because it went through those channels, they should go there and do some enforcement, make an arrest. And things just went bad real quick,
I'll tell you, it's very hard to do their job today, NYPD.
Absolutely. But who pays the price for it is the regular citizens, who have a much less safe city because police are afraid to do their job,
So if you guys go out, right? You go out to dinner. What do you guys order to drink?
I know what Billy orders. He's a Cabernet guy.
I like Cabernet.
How about you?
I'll do either. I really like a good Scotch, but if it's just like a casual, I don't drink a lot. I'm gonna have some. I'll have like a vodka and cranberry or something like that, or maybe a martini, something like that. Those, either a vodka or a Scotch. Those are my two go-to drinks, or a beer.
But if they don't, Jimmy, if they don't have good wine, I drink Corona. If the wine sucks,
I'm a martini guy.
Yeah. You drink Cosmos, Jim, or anything like that? You ever have that? A Cosmopolitan?
Yeah, every so often, back in the day when I was a kid.
Yeah. I go to dinner now, and, my wife likes to try all these fancy drinks and stuff. And they got some really good mixologists in some restaurants. And like something with blood orange and vodka or something like that, I'll go for that. But, I was out this past weekend for my mother-in-law's birthday. I had a couple of Macallum Scotch, which is nice. Gets rid of all the pain in your body.
Nice.
I thought he was going to say he wants a Sambuca Romano with 3 beans.
Gotta have the 3 beans.
I'll tell you, you guys is like, look, back in the day, if you look at the old TV shows, like, the Dean Martin roast, you guys are good together because you're always making fun of each other. That's how I know you like each other so much, I mean, when you stop making fun of each other, then you know what? The relationship is no good no more.
That's true.
You know what, Jimmy? I had 3 long-term partners on the job, and 2 of them were Irish guys. My partner, Artie Williams, who I worked with in 60 Squad for a lot of years. But there's 2 kinds of Irish guys. There's the Irish guys that like they'll like a beer and they'll eat like meat and potatoes, and then there's the other kind of Irish guys like Bill that they like Italian food. My other partner from Intelligence Division, Eddie Driscoll, a great guy. I worked with his brother. He liked the Italian food too. So, there's nothing wrong with meat and potatoes. I get it, but I gelled with Irish guys a lot on the job. But like I said, 2 of my long-term partners, and now my partner in this is Billy Cannon, and we both have the same flavor for Italian food, so we get along.
Bill, what's your favorite Italian dish?
I love shrimp parmesan. That's my favorite.
Okay.
Every time I go to an Italian restaurant, I always order that. My wife's like, "Well, you order something different,
I made him experience L&B Spumoni Gardens.
That's
not
right.
long ago. We had
I left there like a balloon. I couldn't even walk. I ate so much.
Now, do they have the same recipe? I think years ago it was better.
What you're talking about, the pizza, Jim?
Yes.
The pizza, believe it or not, that the pizza recipe hasn't changed, but sometimes the products change. So maybe they're using a different brand of sauce or something like that. And then, there was that whole thing with the sauce recipe that was all bullshit. There was something on the internet recently. I think it was on the Vice channel that had, they were trying to tie it to organized crime and all of that. But just this past Saturday night, I was actually interviewed on a show. It's called New York Homicide. It's on the Oxygen Network. It was season 1, episode 10. It's a show that's done by the former chief of detectives. When the owner of L&B was killed back in 2016, he's actually a distant relative of mine. They try to say it was the sauce recipe. It was an argument over the sauce recipe. It turned out not to be true. That was not true. There was allegedly some incident with some guys out in Staten Island. I don't want to bring up anybody's name, but that may have happened, but that it did not come as a direct result from the L&B family. If you watch that episode, you'll see the chief of detectives says that. He said that we tried every which way to look at it to be linked to organized crime. The FBI was also heavily involved in that case right from the beginning. The FBI had to actually give the case back to the state. You know, the guy was originally arrested and brought to federal court. He was arrested by the FBI, but because there was no involvement by organized crime or anything like that, the case was then prosecuted by the state. And if you watch that episode, you'll see the true story. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo going on. There's rumors that they sold the place. I must have heard that 1,000 times. It's still the same family for the last 82 or 83 years. So just put that to rest.
I'll tell you, that's what I thought. I thought they sold the place because when I order pizza, I see, not Italian faces.
Yeah. The night crew in there is a lot of Egyptian guys. You know, they listen, it's hard to get workers these days. And in the last 15, 20 years, the guys that came to work and showed up and work hard, they happen to be Egyptian guys. And most of them are Coptic Christian guys. After 9/11, somebody started with a rumor because they were Egyptian that, they sold to Muslims and all of that. It wasn't true. It's still the same family. And listen, when you own a business, whoever comes to work and does the job, that's who you hire. And it is what it is,
So when you joined the NYPD, right, how do you move up the ranks?
There's two different ways. One is you can take tests, sergeant, lieutenant, captain. They're all civil service tests. Or else you can excel on the street and go the route of becoming a detective, like Phil did. I was a really good cop, but I took a test. I passed the test and became a sergeant. Then I was a boss. But I still, because I was a sergeant, I still got to run around on the street. If you make lieutenant, for the most part, you're administrative and you don't really get to run around. So I failed the lieutenant's test twice, and I probably was lucky I did because I would have been inside more of an administrative.
How does a college professor fail the lieutenant?
I don't know, man. I failed it twice too. The last time I failed it by 3 points, I was like, that's it. No more tests.
Jimmy, he's not only a retired sergeant from the NYPD, he's a college professor. He taught. He's a comedian. He's an actor. He plays instruments. And I was telling him, I said, I'm just a Guido from Brooklyn that became a detective.
I'll tell you, what? You could tell that, he's definitely has some kind of talent, Bill. I mean, you too, Phil. I mean, you guys really, you guys are great guys, man. What you do is definitely hard, interviewing these people and talking about all these cases. I mean, I love watching your show. I really do. I'm very interested in this stuff. And tonight I'll definitely be tuning in at 9:00 for sure.
Cool. Jimmy, I got to tell you, it's not easy. Now, I know I'm getting a little taste of it. Actually, earlier today, Bill and I were on with one of our people that works for us, that technician, and he was explaining different things about how to load videos and stuff. It's not easy. And I don't know how Bill does it. I don't know how you do it by yourself. It's very difficult. It's very confusing, and it takes time. And then when you're doing live broadcast, that's another thing. This is not easy. We've had instances where the person was supposed to come on, they came on late, or they had a bad connection, and then all of a sudden they dropped out, and we had to carry on a show.
Well, look, we had Chaz Palminteri didn't have his mic on.
Yeah. When we had Chaz on, we had a little difficulty with him because his mic was, I guess he was using the mic that was attached to the computer. He didn't have his mic that was in front of him on. And sometimes these things happen. And when we had Judge DeMango on, we had some technical difficulties. She had to switch and we had to, take her out and stuff. So listen, when you do live broadcast, we become veterans at it quick because it's not easy, and sometimes, and we've had people that were very nasty before we went on the air and stuff like that. Right?
Well, I had asked people to come on early so that if they do have a problem with their lighting or their audio, we could fix it. And it's always the people that I'll be on 5 minutes before. And then, of course, something goes wrong and you can't fix it. because she didn't
lighting
take the time to do it, you
Yeah.
know. And so
I'll
you
tell
see that arrogant bitch, you know, she wouldn't let us, right?
And you know what? Look, I just started getting to learn all this. I mean, I didn't know even how to even put a thumbnail on. And I
Yeah.
just started learning this maybe 2 weeks ago about the thumbnail. Then I learned about the ticker on the bottom. You know,
I love that. That's great,
wait,
Jim.
I didn't know how to do the ticker. Seriously. I was like, wait, I was doing videos on my phone. Okay. I have Apple phone, Apple laptop, but now I do videos on my laptop. So a couple people walked me through this stuff, and then I started learning, you know, and then I learned on my own. But I tell you,
It's complicated, especially when you're the quarterback. You're doing everything, you know.
exactly, it took me about 9 months to you know, learn this stuff.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, definitely not. I see on the ticker you're going to have Glaze on. That guy's got some amazing story, Jimmy. That's going to be a great show. I hope your viewers tune in for that one.
Thank you, Phil. You know what, Glaze? I spoke to Glaze one time. I'm going to be talking to him this week. But you know, he was a serious guy.
Oh,
Glaze. You know,
real
he
serious.
dealt with, you know,
Wait,
and that's
is that the pink houses guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, that's the thing. You know what? Like, I want to have a conversation with him. You know, the Italians and the blacks. What's the difference as far as, you know what I mean, in the streets? Yeah, you know what? We have organized crime. You know what? They're more with the dope and the gangs and stuff like that. But these, you know, these kids and these guys, listen, they'll kill you in a minute.
You know what, Jimmy, you're going to have something in common with him. Like Tommy Dades was sort of like a mentor to you, or he helped you. He pulled you out of the life. Joe Ponzi was the guy from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office that was the one that mentored Glaze and really became the guy that pulled him out and helped him along the way. And they're still friends till this day, just like you're friends with Tommy, you know. So I think you're going to have a great show with him. I mean, he's got a tremendous backstory, and I guess you could call it a success story because he came out of it and, you know, he's doing well now. You know, he was dodging bullets and everything else. So, you know, not easy growing up in them areas just to survive through them, you know, without being involved in anything. And then he was involved in a life of crime and he made it through. So that should be a great show. When's he coming up? When is it? Did you have a date yet?
Not yet. One day this week. And you know what? Growing up like Glaze, I mean, it's either death or prison. That's all. That's where you're going. You're getting killed or you're going to prison. There ain't nowhere else you're going.
Right.
That's right.
But
100%.
But yeah, we have 319 people in the chat. Listen, I'm not gonna keep you guys too long. But you know what? Did you guys know Anthony Massimillo?
I know him.
You know Anthony Massimillo?
6'7" cop that was shot and killed during. He was a warrant officer in the precinct. Yes. Tony Moss, we used to call him.
I grew up with them. Sally Moss, Anthony Moss. Anthony Moss was you know, one of the better guys in the neighborhood. And you know, he became a cop. He was you know, in the street here and there, but I knew his family, his mother Mary and stuff like that when I was a kid. But you know, I just wanted to mention his name.
Jimmy, since you brought up about Tony Moss, I just want to tell everybody that's listening, you know, when we go through 20 years, 25 years, Billy was 27 years on the job. There's a lot of things that affect you. And, you know, I was on the scene. I was involved in 2 shootouts. I had bullets coming at me and I was firing them back 2 different times, 1982, 1986. And I was on the scene of several cop shootings. I was on the scene of one where a cop was killed and another guy that I worked with was shot. And I had to go to the emergency room with the guy that was shot, one of the perpetrators. And I saw the cop who I knew, he was a training officer. I had seen him 2 hours before he was killed. And I watched as a doctor opened up his chest, stuck his hand into his chest, and tried to massage his heart. It's like a last-ditch effort to save someone's life. And as that doctor squeezed on his heart, I saw the blood coming out of the bullet holes that he had sustained. And these are the things that, you know, you want to talk about post-traumatic stress. That's the things that cops go through. And, you know, the horrors of the job, like those 2 cops that were killed recently up in Harlem, the guy that saved the day and shot the perpetrator, you know, he's going to carry that for the rest of his life, you know, and anybody else that was there, you know, that carried the cop into the emergency room. You know, you see your brother officer bleeding out. It's something that stays with you. And you know what? I don't have no regrets about it. I love the job. There was times when I first went on the job that if they told me we can't pay you for 6 months, I probably would have still came to work when I was a new cop. But you know, there was a handful of bad days. Most of them were good days. I got to say, you know, when you solve a murder and you get justice for a family, as a detective, I took the lateral, like Bill was explaining, you know, you could take tests. I took the lateral move. I always wanted to be a detective. When I'm standing over a dead body with a notebook in my hand and I got no idea who did it, and it's a, you know, whether it's a week later, a month later, or a year later, and I got the guy that did it and he's going to jail for it, it's pretty euphoric. It's a good feeling. And, you know, when you get to tell that family, you know, we got the guy that did it, that also is a reward, I guess you could say.
Well, you guys, I really appreciate you having you on here. I mean, you did a lot of justice over here, NYPD. Big respect to you guys. And you know, I'll be watching the show tonight, 9 p.m.
Yep.
Police Off the Cuff. And you know,
Jimmy, I just want to thank you. You've helped us out a lot since we've been doing this podcast, and we tried to help you too with, we call it cross-pollination. You taking some of our fans and some of your subscribers coming over to us, and we appreciate it. And I had a lot of fun coming on your show tonight.
Phil, thank you so much for coming, and you too, Phil.
Absolutely. Jimmy, thank you. We got to have you on our show again. And any of our listeners that are watching this, go on Jimmy's YouTube, subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Same thing if any of your listeners want to come on ours and subscribe. We all work together and just try to put out some good content. Thank you again, Jimmy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and respect to NYPD and you guys. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
All
Bye.
right.
Phil Grimaldi and Bill Cannon. That was very nice of them coming on. I think it was a great show. To all you guys in the chat, thanks for showing up. We had 333 people in the chat. And tonight you can watch Police Off the Cuff, 9 p.m. They have a great show. Check it out. And you guys, you know, I really appreciate the support you give me. Let's check out this video.
The streets will never make you grow. It's not a seed, it's a gutter. There's no happy endings in this life. So this is my message to you. The streets will never love you back.
Pow. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for showing up, and I'll see you on my next video. I love you guys. Thanks for the support. Bye.